have mastered a new menu. Congratulations. You healed a lot of things. But the reason you're stuck is you're still making 5 times the amount of insulin you need to. 2 boluses of food are going to be a better one than 3. Most adults don't need 3 meals a day. 2 boluses is enough. And then as you get used to eating 2 meals a day, now we squeeze them together within a 6-hour period. Then the next step we do is we slide those towards sunrise. Your first meal being around 10 o'clock in the morning. The second one should be done by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then watch how many days in a row you can do that. 10 bites of food before noon equal 1 bite of food after 3 o'clock.
Today's guest is Dr. Annette Bosworth, better known as Dr. Boz. She is an internal medicine physician who has spent decades helping people reverse severe insulin resistance, obesity, and chronic disease using therapeutic ketogenic strategies. She is known for not being afraid to challenge popular advice, even within the carnivore and keto communities, and I love her for that. Today, we are getting into the controversial stuff within the keto and carnivore world, like the biggest mistakes she sees and questions that some people are too afraid to ask. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's dive in. Dr. Boz, thank you so much for joining me today. We met briefly a few months ago in Tampa, and it was so nice to meet you, but I cannot wait to ask you all of the questions today.
Well, thanks for having me on your show, Lauren. I really appreciate the different audiences that happen when I get invited. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have helped thousands of people reverse metabolic disease. You're also known for some pretty controversial strategies, which I'm all about. I love that. Today, I want to get into some of these with you. Let's start with a big one, something I've been dying to ask you. I see you recommend it all of the time, sardine fasts. So coming from someone that does carnivore, that doesn't freak me out. But to a lot of people, it might sound a little bit unappetizing and kind of crazy. Like, what do you mean just eat sardines for a few days? Why would someone want to do that?
Well, so I think one of the best parts of the seat that I sit in is for 25 years, I've taken care of chronic diseases that get worse over time, period. That's what's supposed to happen. And when I look at the place that my company has really found a place to serve the patients to counteract that statement that it is stamped in the medical books. Chronic diseases get worse. Chronic diseases get worse. And when you look at the options for reversing them 10 years ago, I mean, I didn't think it would reverse them. I was just as skeptical as probably any other doctor who hasn't really leaned into what a carnivore diet could do, what a ketogenic diet could do. And so as I took care of the first few years of patients, certainly when they would hit wonderful metabolic numbers, I could see problems reverse. But for every, 3 or 4 success stories, there was about 7 to 10 that couldn't see a breakthrough, that their disease was so advanced and the grime inside their cells. That's what I tell patients. It's like, you've been doing this a long time. To undo the problem, we need to be perfect when it comes to some of the metrics. So when I've tried to help people do that, we talk about you can't count net carbs. You need to count total carbs. You need to check blood numbers, not urine numbers. You need to prick in your finger first thing in the morning, not at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All of the things to say, I need to see what's going on in your metabolism in order to tell you correctly. And when I would look at the most difficult to treat patients, I would have them going 0 carbohydrate, even carnivore, and they would be 10 days into that diet and not produce a ketone. That's not normal. That's very abnormal. I've even had patients go, 15 days with nothing. I mean, a water fast. You should be making buckets of ketones in that patient, and they didn't. Their bodies were so broken. Their metabolisms were so, you could say, rusted. They could not churn out ketones. It was too high of an ask, especially when you cut calories all the way to 0. So I started, leaning into the experts, and my good friend Dom D'Agostino said, when, this is one of the little hacks he used. And then I had a few patients write in saying, I just ate mackerel or sardines or anchovies for 3 or 4 days. And I'm thinking, all right, tell me what happened. And almost all of them would be these engineering brains, and they'd send me spreadsheets of here's my glucose and here's my ketones and here's the ounces and the timing of all of the fatty fish that they had eaten. And by golly, these folks were also in that category where I wasn't expecting them to see much results that quickly. and they just had an eruption of success. I mean, just the ketones would spike, the glucose would finally go down. In other words, they were dropping the total production of insulin, and this would unlock the repair process needed to undo, some of the health problems found in these chronic diseases like autoimmune disorders, cancers, obesity, prediabetes, diabetes, heart disease, heart failure, all of these things that when you get one, they stack on another. We don't ever erase them. And these patients were erasing blood pressure. They were erasing edema or joint pain or even these autoimmune disorders. That's unheard of when I first started in this space. And so then my first time where I really tested this was probably 4.5 years ago, where I did the first of my, twice a year, I do a really high touch class where I consult with 200 students at once as I take them through a ketogenic diet that would be for a cancer patient or a seizure patient or a severely ill patient. And so this is the protocol you need to succeed. If you want to see the most advanced ketogenic diet, I'll do it with you. And in that process, I get them on the first week, we get them down to 20 total carbs. I get them pricking their finger first thing in the morning. Everybody gets all the things. And then on the seventh day, we say the menu only has sardines. And Lauren, I can remember the first time I've got all of these patients hooked up to a dashboard. So it is a much different scenario than seeing a patient one at a time, then one at a time, then one at a time. And over the course of a year, trying to kind of bring this constellation of data to say, what's the trend that I'm seeing? When you're seeing 200 patients at once tell you, you're my last hope. I need your ketogenic. I need the numbers to be great. They have terrible numbers on days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I mean, we're making ketones of 0.5 and celebrating. And then they go on a sardine challenge. And again, the rules of the sardines are you must eat this high fat fishy or high fat fish. That's the first bite. It begins your 72 hours. And then I don't care. There's no eating window for it. It's any hour of the day. You can have as much as you want. We want it in oil, not in water. And so we started this, and I'm watching these numbers on that first time where like half of the class had ketones north of 1 by 48 hours. And
Wow.
by 72 hours, it ends on the 72nd hour, you eat a can of sardines. So now you have 3 days of this high fat fish. And what I didn't appreciate the first time, but I definitely will confirm, is that it's really difficult to overeat this little fish. There is not a lot of gluttony associated with eating sardines. And so the food volume was certainly down from what would be normal in these patients. But that high quantity or high quality of fat and protein, it flipped a switch. In fact, the best numbers were not at the end of the 72 hours. They were the next morning. I have goosebumps because every time I think about it, I remember thinking, oh, look at what we just unlocked. And these patients were going to be at a ketone of 0.5 or 0.7. That was what I was expecting. And to watch them hit a ketone number that got closer to like 3.5 or 4 on that fourth day, the day after the sardine challenge, and their glucoses had clearly they'd gone down. But especially in your really sick patients, what you see first when you're doing the right thing is you see a lift of that. I mean, you can see a slight drop in the glucose, but it's really subtle. It's the lift in ketones that you start to unlock this untapped energy resource for these chronically ill patients. And since then, so we've done that class 8 times now. We just finished up about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things I teach as I'm doing this sardine I do it with them. All the coaches do it with them. Everybody does sardines for 3 days, and we all watch these numbers. And I tell them, you're making new mitochondria. That's what's happening inside those cells. The reason that patient couldn't get good numbers, the reason that carnivore couldn't get good numbers wasn't because they weren't following the rules, or it wasn't because they weren't disciplined. It's that their body was so ill, so had such poor health at a subcellular level that their mitochondria kind of were crippled. They were limping along. And the signal to replace those mitochondria comes from a drop in insulin and a spike in ketones. And you you can't unlock that in most patients when they're that sick. Um, I recently wrote a story of one of the most remarkable. I mean, I've had several great stories, but this guy had evidence. He had the numbers to prove what happened, and in his um, mid 50s, he was told by his doctor, you know, you've got prediabetes, and really he had diabetes. A1C is 6.5, and this was like 2017, 18. And he said, I don't want to go on your medicine. So he gets the book by Dr. Jason Fung, a great friend and colleague. And he says, Jason Fung says I can fast my way out of this. And I'm just going to not eat anything for the first 8 days of a month. And he's very disciplined. He does that. He fasts 7 days for the first at the first of every month. And he does it for 18 consecutive months, and he gets the problem to go away. And his A1C is down, his blood pressure's down, his weight's down, he's winning. And then he falls off of a scaffolding and breaks both legs. So he's immobile. And it takes him a couple of years to get everything back to going. And now he's been surrounded by traditional medicine. Nobody's telling him anything that fasting is at all possible. His A1C is back up to 6.5. And he asks the doctor, what can you help me?
Before we keep going, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Salter Electrolytes. You guys know I've been on my own health journey for a while, and finding products that are high quality and actually work is really hard. That's why I have been loving Salter Electrolytes. Most big name electrolytes use cheap table salt, mineral forms that really mess up my stomach, corn-derived citric acid, fillers, and ingredients I just personally don't tolerate well. But Salter uses super clean and mineral-rich Norwegian sea salt. They're mold and lead-free, and they test higher in trace minerals than other brands. My absolute favorite flavor is the tart lime, but you guys, they have a salted caramel coffee, which is amazing. Side note, I only ever buy mold-free coffee, and the fact that this is mold-free is amazing. If you want to try Salter for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description below so you can save 10%. Now let's get back to this interview.
And this is just in time for tirzepatide, the GLP-1 GIP agonist, to be available. And the doctor says, we're going to give you the best drug on the market. And they start him out on tirzepatide, 2.5 milligrams every week. Oh, it's not doing anything. Go up to 5 milligrams every week. Oh, it's not doing anything. Go up to 10, go up to 15 milligrams, the highest dose possible. He stays on that dose for 2 years while he gains weight, while he takes an A1C all the way up to 10. That's like an average blood sugar of like 280. And the guy is so frustrated because he's doing everything the doctors are telling him. But what I want you to imagine is his cells are really broken. They were kind of broken when he was immobile for that long. But they have continued to decline and to deteriorate for now 2 years. And when the tirzepatide stopped him from eating so much, but it was like a constant fast. He couldn't hardly make a ketone. I mean, he didn't make any ketones. So he gets all ticked off. He throws the medicine out the window and says, I'm just going to go back to doing what I did before. But he's a very sick man now. So he says, he fasted like a knucklehead, which means he got to the end of 72 hours, didn't have any results. So now he's going to fast. Well, let's just go for 7 days. But he gets to the end of 72 days and his blood sugars are still high and hardly a ketone. He fasts for 21 days of water and salt only. And his blood sugars are still above 100. And his ketones are 0.7. I mean, that's like what mine are before, breakfast. I mean, there's unbelievably poor response of his metabolism. And what I want patients or people to appreciate is inside his cells, the mitochondria were broken. So he shows up for this class and he's very fatalistic. If this doesn't work, I'm going to die, and he was pretty grumpy that he went through the class, he gets to the sardines and he's making, 2.5 ketones, 3.0 ketones, but his blood sugars are still in the high, like 150s by the end of the second week. Gets to the end of the third week of the class and now we do a water fast. His ketones go up to like 5.0 and his blood sugar comes down, but it's still not below 100. And he's kind of a grump. So he's like, see, everybody else in my class is better than me. And all I can see is, do you know what's happening during a time where the ketones have gone up like that and the glucose has gone down is that you're replacing mitochondria. It's mitophagy. And that's what he wasn't doing when he was just denying food on tirzepatide for 2 years. And then, well, then he denied food another way, just said, I'm just going to be disciplined and fast for 21 days. Again, no replacement of mitochondria. When we put them in a place where sardines might rescue him, and that is what rescued him, it's that they're eating the protein and fat, specifically the fat. He can't unlock the fat till he lowers his insulin. And his insulin is so far off the charts that he will have he'll have a metabolic shutdown. Like he will waste muscle cells before he'll open his fat cells. Uh, it, unless you use a food like high fat, easy accessible fat, and volume of food is low. And well, that's what those little fish deliver. So I think of him as the unlock, especially for the sickest of the sick patients.
That is amazing, and I wish I met you years ago because I was so sick. So this I wish I had this. I mean, it sounds like the best healing hack ever. You eat sardines for 3 days, and then you can go into carnivore or whatever it is that, ketogenic diet and keep, your ketones in check and your blood sugar in check. Why is this not more recognized? Like, I think this needs to be shared, scream from the rooftops. Anyone that's sick should try it and, see how you feel after that.
Well, I'm really happy to hear you see the beauty of it because, I look at when I'm trying to show patients like, hey, there's not a lot for me to gain on this, this place. I don't have a prescription that's going to make you as better as this way of eating is. And so I really feel the empathy for patients trying to find answers.
Mm.
And the ones that go to the top of the advertisement, the ones with the highest budgets are a supplement or a prescription medication. And although they may have some benefit, it's like you are majoring in the minor leagues. If you want to see the massive change the chemistry of what your body's doing first thing in the morning. And although there are little hacks out there that can make it a little easier, um, some people eat sardines for 3 days, and it is such a shift of their body's chemistry that they drop their blood pressure, they diurese, I mean, they pee out a bunch of extra fluid, and they can get lightheaded, they can feel really lousy. So even if we say, maybe you're not healthy enough for a true, strict sardine, challenge, the 3 days of only sardines, I tell them, put in a high carnivore breakfast, and then the only thing on the menu after 12 o'clock noon is sardines.
Mm.
And that is it's a gentler way to get this unlock of the processes that, I mean, you don't have to trust me. Measure your numbers first thing in the morning. You will see it. And to me, that's been one of the best ways to say, one of the curses that I have in my company is it sounds like snake oil. It sounds like I'm selling you something that's going to cure everything. And, well, that's exactly what's in the supplemental advertising. That's exactly what's on Amazon when they say, eat this acai berry and you're going to feel all good inside. But that's exactly what the advertisement for semaglutide or Ozempic is too. And I contend that story is an excellent example that when you put these really high-powered medications on board, but the parts inside their cells are so crippled, you will not get a good outcome. You will get that muscle wasting. You may get loss of weight, but to restore health, you miss the boat. You really need to have ketones in circulation before you do that. And sardines for the win, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna start incorporating them more into my diet. I really like your tip of just sardines after noon because that's way more easy to handle than sardines only for 3
Oh,
days, especially for someone that's coming from a standard American diet that wants to try, carnivore or something to heal because that's what I did. And
Mhm.
that's really hard already. So it's like, no, you can't even have a burger. You have to eat
Mm.
sardines, these little slimy things in a can. It's crazy.
The best part about that is one of the dysfunctional parts about trying to just say to people, oh, just go have a ketogenic diet or go on carnivore is there is a lot of emotional and baggage associated with what we think about food, how often we think about food, what we use food for in our lives. And I am not that I've been working with addicts for 25 years. it's not a little thing. When you just say, "No, you can't have that, you must have this," uh, they're gonna go through some withdrawal from their food, and giving them variability for that first meal of the day. They'll say, "I don't like breakfast." I'm like, "You will if the only thing after lunch is sardines. Give me 3 days."
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
That's so funny.
mhm,
So that leads me to my next topic is carnivore. Now I know you recommend carnivore as well as keto, just depending on the
mhm,
patient, I'm sure. But it's
mhm,
not always that simple, right? It's not
right.
always just eat meat, salt, water, eggs, whatever it is, eat until you're full. There's some kind of nuances with it. There's some things that can go wrong, especially with me. I didn't really know what carnivore was. We just like did trial by fire, bought all the meat and eggs at Costco and just went with it. But what are some of the biggest carnivore mistakes that you see coming from your patients? What are they doing that could go wrong?
Well, first of all, it is the easiest first step to the ketogenic diet is separating out the menu. When and I go back to 2015, 2016, while I was trying to teach the ketogenic diet, and my husband kept saying, "You can't say that word keto. It just sounds like off-putting, like, it sounds clinical." Eh, and I'm like, "I don't know what else to call it. They're making ketones." And so when the words carnivore kinda surfaced about 4 or 5 years later, and now is a much easier way to introduce that your menu is going to have fat and protein on it. And I do agree with the onset of how most carnivores are introduced saying, eat till you're full." Satiety is a hormonal feeling. If you have any argument against that, click on semaglutide or tirzepatide and watch to say, why are they so successful? They're mimicking hormones of satiety. When you look at a carnivore menu, those first weeks of just feeling satiated, that brain hasn't felt that in years. So beginning on a carnivore diet is exactly what you just said. You have them eat till they're full, enjoy the food again, find the foods that give you pleasure, keep that high fat, high protein in the place. Where I try to turn up the volume of saying I might want to do things differently is when they stall. So do what works, ride the wave for the first part. And if you don't need my help, God bless you. But if they stall and say, your diseases got better when you lowered the first part of that insulin, that's what happened when they ate less carbohydrates. Well, now I have usually about a third of the people that come to my channel um, are carnivore stuck. They are on carnivore, they are used to the menu, but they haven't lost a pound. Their blood pressure is still high. We talk a lot about the thumb shin print where they push on the shin bone about 2 inches above their ankle and they can bury their thumb with
Mhm.
swelling. That's not fat, that's swelling. That is water that shouldn't be in their body. And when I look at those carnivores stuck, that's the profile. Their blood pressure doesn't do exactly what I want it to do, and they've got swelling in their ankles. When I wrote the book Keto Continuum, it was because I had used keto for helping folks with cancer, and I was, especially helping my mother, who was my first patient, and looking at other severely autoimmune patients, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, advanced medical problems where the ketogenic diet was doing things I had never seen documented in a medical journal, in a textbook, any of that. And then I had too many people trying to come see me. So I said, well, I'm just going to take the instructions that I use for my patients and write a book about it. So Keto Continuum is a story of a patient who made every mistake possible. Great teachable story, but it walks through that there are steps that not everybody needs to go all the way through the 12 steps. How hard do you need to push your metabolism? But if you walk through and say, why did that carnivore get stuck? Insulin is made much more robustly after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Specifically, it spikes after sunset. So when patients were saying, I eat all I want, I've now eat maybe 2 meals a day, or maybe they're OMAD and eat 1 meal a day, but it's in the darkest hours of the night and they're sick coming into me. So now this carnivore mistake that, who are the people that land in my universe? It's all right, you have mastered a new menu. Congratulations. You healed a lot of things, but the reason you're stuck is you're still making 5 times the amount of insulin you need to. And we talk about 2 boluses of food are going to be a better one than three. Most adults don't need 3 meals a day. 2 boluses is enough. And then as you get used to eating 2 meals a day, now we squeeze them together within a 6-hour period. Then the next step we do is we slide those towards sunrise. Your first meal being around 10 o'clock in the morning, the second one should be done by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then watch how many days in a row you can do that. And this is really where those social things come into play, that it's your kids' baseball. It's this, the family reunion happen. Oh, my husband wanted to go out for anniversary. There's always some social reason. So when those things are always outranking the meal after 3 o'clock, you're going to fail as a carnivore with high insulin. So when I look at the biggest mistake they make is they ride the wave and they do feel better, and they are zealots. They love their carnivore diet. The menu is just satisfying. In fact, their brain is healthier because of what has been their autoimmune problems are. Even if they didn't know they had one, they're less symptomatic. But to completely reverse it, you're going to have to lower the insulin more. There's a recent little video I put out that 10 bites of food before noon equal 1 bite of food after 3 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you're looking at volume of food and how much that impacts an insulin-resistant carnivore, the timing of their food becomes really important. Getting used to a nothing burger, like that means I talk about no mastication, no chewing of anything. So I have a lot of gum chewers that say, this is
Yeah.
how I get through of not eating. I chew a bunch of gum. And in a healthy, young, teenage, 20-year-old, there's no problem. But this is an obese 50-year-old male or female that uses gum to kind of not eat. But the mastication stimulates their insulin in a pathologic way. That's not, that's not normal. Yeah, no kidding. It's also not normal for you to be this insulin resistant and overweight. So looking at other ways that, they trigger the production of insulin, volume of food is one thing. Timing of the food is the most important.
That's really interesting. I need to pay attention more of what time I eat, because I've noticed. So another question I had was high fat carnivore. I tried it pretty heavily for a few months. I ate all the, fattier meat, the fattier ground beef, the ribeyes. I'm very lactose intolerant, so I can't do butter. So I did some extra
Yeah.
tallow, and I noticed that I gained a little bit of weight. I still had a little bit of healing to do, so I don't know if it had anything to do with that. But what is your thought on gaining weight on
Yeah.
the carnivore diet? Like, can you have too much fat?
Well, let's just take your example. So, can you tell me the symptoms that were still smoldering that you were trying to take care of with that higher fat setting?
Yeah, so I had MCAS. So I had like severe histamine intolerance, and I would
Mm.
get more sensitivity to light and sounds and smells. I'd get headaches. I could tell
Yeah.
exactly when it's coming, exactly what it is. Stomach off a little bit, but most of the severe symptoms were gone. But every once
Hmm.
in a while, I'll start getting, a bad headache where I have to go lay in bed for a few hours. And that's the main
Right.
one. Sometimes I'll get
Right.
joint pain, mostly in my fingers, but yeah, I noticed a little bit of that and a little bit of weight gain.
Well, I'll tell you that I've seen that case many times, right? This is a chronic disease that grows over time. On a carnivore diet, it gets much better. But when you're trying to say, can you get it to stop? You do need the replication of those cells that make histamine to happen for multiple generations of those cells in an advanced ketogenic state. So do you prick your finger and look at glucose and ketones ever?
No, I have, but I haven't been consistent
Good
with
about
it.
it. So it's not forever, but it is a season where you say, I'm going to be committed to the best, eosinophils, which is what holds
Mhm.
histamine, eosinophils in my system. We're gonna see if we can keep them. We need about 5 generations for sure, but we need a really perfect production of those 5 generations. White blood cells are pretty quick to recover. To replicate. So when I look at the treatment plan for multiple sclerosis, that is a brain cell. An oligodendrite is the enemy. It's being attacked by your immune system. It's on the other side of a blood-brain barrier. And the lifespan for that cell is much longer, months. So I need my multiple sclerosis patients to be in an advanced ketogenic state for 9 to 12 months. No messing up, 9 to 12 months. And somebody with a histamine issue related to mast cells, I need you to be in an advanced ketogenic state for 6 weeks. Now, that means prick your finger and prove to me that you have a Dr. Boz ratio of less than 40 for 6 consecutive weeks. What happens then is you now replicate those cells into a they're gonna do their thing. They're gonna live out their lifespan, recycle, live out their lifespan, live out their lifespan. And now you get the end of 6 weeks for a case like this. And now I want you to trigger them and see what happens. But I want you to trigger them in a ketogenic state. So having the replication of those cells over time is a great beginning story. You don't need to see a doctor to do this. You do need a meter,
Ugh.
and you need to be checking first thing in the morning. I call it TOT, test on the toilet. Don't mess around. I don't want you running and making coffee and then checking your numbers. I need to be able to predict what were your numbers while you were sleeping 2 hours ago. So the closer I can get them to first awakening numbers, the better understanding I'll have of what they did overnight. And Lauren, it's not a secret. They need a Dr. Bob's ratio is the glucose divided by the ketones. It's dirty math, meaning the millimoles per liter and the milligrams per deciliter do not match, but you take the big number divided by the little number. And if you're
Okay.
trying to reset an autoimmune disorder, you really want those numbers below 40 first thing in the morning. And you're young. You should be able to do this with one really committed trial of it. And then I want you, like, do you know what would trigger a headache for you?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Bacon, sausages,
Mm,
any kind of smoked meats, even on a carnivore diet, I still have to be careful. So I could do that. That would keep me in ketosis and
right?
see.
If
Yeah.
it triggers. So
Mhm.
here's just a fun fact. You have an antidote when it starts, besides go lay down.
Sometimes. Sometimes. I use herbs and homeopathy mostly.
Yeah.
There's like a trick, it's medication, it's Zyrtec and Pepsid. It's like you take both of them at the same time, and it's supposed to knock out both H1 and H2 something receptors,
Hmm.
but it doesn't always work. So I just try to lay low and keep it easy.
So my fastest, public service announcement to keep histamine low in somebody who's having a reaction is to lower their body temperature. So I
Mm,
used to run an ER for the first 10 years of um, my medical practice, and I was in the middle of nowhere, Fillmore, Utah. You're about 100 miles from a major hospital. And so when people would come in with a severe allergic reaction, we don't have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber or anything. It's not quite rural medicine, but it's rural for access to the kind of tools we might need. And and ever someone, so a physician taught me this probably in the first month of the scariest thing ever is being the only doctor around for 100 miles when you first graduate. Like, do I know enough? Google didn't exist then, guys. It's got to be in my brain. I mean, it might have existed, but I didn't recall using it. When you look at the ice bath that we would put patients in, so a patient would come in, angioedema is the classic. Do you know what that is?
no.
Angioedema means they have one area of their body that will swell up. It's commonly around their mouth. So like the lip, it would be the size of an orange. I mean, it just swells up.
Wow.
They'll get stretch marks on their skin from how quickly it will swell up. Their eye will swell closed and it'll look like the size of a baseball. If that happens around their vocal or around their airway, you can, they can have a compromised airway and you, you die.
Mm,
Uh, so to stop the histamine responses, you want to lower the body temperature. So we would pack them in ice. We would get the helicopter headed our way, but many times we could reverse their histamine response by lowering the core body temperature in that. So today that's called an ice bath
yeah.
or a cold plunge, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that to you for anybody who suffers with what you've got. When
Mhm.
that's coming on, you got to get up into your armpits. You got to stay there for at least 3 minutes to lower body temperature. If you can stay till 5, you're really doing good things. But you got to lower the body temperature in order to stop the histamine releases. So good hack, good
Thank you.
public
Yeah,
service
I'll keep
announcement.
some ice in my freezer and try that
Yeah.
next time. I recently had Dr. Thomas C. Fried on my channel to talk about cancer and the ketogenic approach to he said don't ever use the word treat, but you know,
Right.
to use it for that. And you wrote a book called Any Way You Can about your mom who had
Uh-huh.
cancer and how you discovered ketosis.
Right.
And have you seen a lot of other patients become much healthier or live much longer with this recommendation?
Wow. Yes. Oh my gosh. So again, Dr. Seafried and I are both on the same page there. We do not use the word cure or treat. We are augmenting the therapies of what is out there for patients with cancer. That we know there are some incredibly beneficial uh, uh, replication of cells. There's a formula for what healthy cells do, what cancerous cells do, and then especially what they do when glucose has been made scarce and ketones are more abundant. Healthy cells are able to quickly flip between those two fuels using the fat, especially oxidizing the fat very efficiently, delivering the energy to the cell without compromise. When you look at a cell that it has cancer, part of the defect is what happens to its mitochondria, and that's your powerhouse that takes energy and makes it into ATP, makes the energy present. That is not as robust. There are flaws in how that works, and when you offer it a glucose, it will quickly turn it into succinic acid and lactic acid, making for a quick fuel, very wasteful fuel, but it stays alive. When you offer it a ketone, it doesn't have the right parts to really convert that to the robust production of ATP that a healthy cell does. So when you can see that separation, and you'll hear Dr. Seyfried say cancer is a metabolic disease. What does he mean when he says that? It means that the cancer's ability to take a fuel and extract the highest amount of ATP out of it is flawed. That is a true statement. It doesn't do that. It has some hacks that it can get around and do different things. It can adapt. Cancer is a smart problem, but it is at its foundation linked to the poor metabolism that is found in a cancer cell. Now you say, wait a minute, this cell grows, it grows and grows and grows. Doesn't that mean the metabolism is good? Oh, it's a robust production and cell proliferation. The way it's using that fuel is crippled, though. It's not sustainable. It has flaws, which is why the patient succumbs from it. When I look at some of the best stories out there, again, it is a delicate thing to talk about to a podcast or to a large audience, because I've been walking folks through this last chapter of life for a long time, and it's easy to exploit them. They are scared. Number one fear in life is death. That fear goes up a lot when somebody says the word cancer, and now they're counting, will I have another birthday? Will I have another anniversary? Will I see my kids at Christmas? Though it's a very delicate season that I think gets exploited in the setting of medicine. I mean, just chemotherapy and hospice can be, what the heck did you do that to that patient? You did not improve their life at all. So I say this with all the grace that having cancer means you got some major conversations to have. Nobody is going to step in there and do that for you. It is a lonely season. But having cancer and saying, can I live my best life as I deal with whatever's come my way? I would tell you that there hasn't been a cancer patient that I wouldn't have recommended a ketogenic diet to. Now, there are some of them that come to me and they write into my channel and they say, would you help my mom? She's, 200 pounds overweight. She has had diabetes for 20 years. She injects 100 units of insulin. She has sleep apnea. She has all the things. And I'm going to now ask you to take care of her by using a ketogenic diet because she has colon cancer. And you're like, there are so many steps involved of where you're at right now and where you need to be, that our solution, again, this has been a difficult place that we go, like we don't want to not offer help, but that season of how many layers of improvement to your metabolism we need to offer. And you're sick. Now you're going to have a surgical removal of the colon and a bunch of chemotherapy to then add a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet that puts them into ketosis. There's only so much a human can handle. You watch those attractions to say, can we use a ketogenic state to improve the quality of life? Absolutely. Have I seen people reverse their cancers? Yes. I mean, evidence that we have looked and looked, we cannot find the cancer. It's 2 years later. Have we seen people reverse their symptoms of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS? Yes. And those are real stories. That is not fake news, but I do not lead with that. I look at the amount of people saying, we all have a little cancer in us. Your body takes care of it. When it gets to be the part where the medical system says, let me give you the best we've got, which is chemotherapy and radiation, it's because the cancer is large enough to have the risk outweigh uh, the benefit outweigh the risk for what we're about to do. That's not the that's not the day to start learning about the ketogenic diet.
If someone is concerned about cancer, they're afraid because it runs in their family or, past lifestyles. If they start a ketogenic diet, do you think that's enough to keep cancer away?
Well, that's what I'm doing. So my mom had CLL, and she was a healthy woman, grew up in South Dakota without, air pollution or other things. She was a good old prairie woman. Had good food that not processed. But but we were farmers, so there was toxin exposures. And what happened to her bone marrow is a overgrowth of a cancer that is highly insulin dependent. The insulin is a growth factor. And so when they're putting, she did have years of just struggling with her weight. Her thyroid took off in the wrong direction. She could not seem to lose weight, despite her, really smart doctor and daughter saying, "Well, here's what you need to do, mom." Uh, and when we used a ketogenic diet, it was because she was refusing treatment for anything. I'd already tried to kill her a couple of times with chemotherapy, and it's not like we didn't use that again, but when we added the ketogenic diet, the insulin reduced. She went back to the weight she was in high school. She reversed age by like 35, 40 years. She looked amazing. And that energy and joy and fresh amounts of mitochondria, that's really what had happened. They didn't happen because she dabbled in it once a week. She pricked her finger. She stayed the numbers. She did the things to keep a state of ketosis persistent. I fast every week, not because I have to. I don't need to lose any more weight. I want to make sure I push a stressful, a programmed, a hormetic stress to my system where ketones go up and glucose goes down, so that each week I plunge that stress, reduce the amount of insulin needed to keep my body doing what it's supposed to do. I love to get to 60 hours of fasting. Sometimes I only get to in the high 50s. And then when I do that class twice a year, I do the 72-hour fast with them at least twice a year. But there's many hours, many weeks in there that people say, "Why are you doing that?" It is for persistence of health. My mother had cancer from a high insulin state. The reversal of that was such an epiphany that you could reverse these things. She was 71 when we started, and incredible education for me to then be a really good teacher of this. Not just dabbling. You need to check if you are trying to prevent cancer, if you are trying to reverse autoimmune problems, you got to man up and you got to prick your finger. If I can teach a 7-year-old type 1 insulin, type 1 diabetic who needs to inject insulin to prick their finger and give them a shot, you can prick your finger and check your glucose, check your ketones. You can do it.
I've noticed that a lot of life-changing events like that are something that people then use as fuel to like drive them and become so passionate about sharing with others. And I think it's really beautiful that you do that. You took a
Yeah.
really scary story and you all learned from it, and now you're sharing it with the world and you're helping people heal for free.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
that like I've loved watching you, and I think that what you're doing is amazing. And yeah, I just want to thank you for all your work. I
Yeah.
think it's
I
awesome.
I'm a woman of faith, and I do know that, when you're doing what you've been called to do, it is easy. That you can get all stressed out, "I do all this stuff for free, how do I make payroll?" Yeah, that does bother me sometimes. Uh, but then I think it's the devil. You say, "No, what? My role, what I've been asked to do, what I've been called to do, is it took this incredibly difficult moment where I'm a really good physician, but my mother was dying under my care, and it was awful. And then to see how much her health resurrected when I fed her correctly. Shame on me for not knowing that for the 15 years before I started that. And let there be so many people that learn from her pain, from my pain, in a story that says, read the book, listen to the audiobook of any way you can. It's a love story between a mother and a daughter. There's about 30% science in there. It's mostly a story of what it looks like to resurrect someone's health and say, "Thank you, God, for that."
Wow. Whew, I just got
Yes.
chills. That's awesome. Now, not all health is related to diet, right? There's a lot of different aspects that come with it. Diet's just what I tend to focus on a lot because that's what helped
Uh,
me the most. But if there was something else that's not related to diet that someone could change today that would have a dramatic positive improvement on their health, what would you recommend?
I would recommend midnight. Midnight. What does that mean
Okay.
to you?
Sleep?
Are you
Yeah.
going to sleep? Are you deep in sleep, or is it bedtime?
I would hopefully be deep in sleep. I try to go to bed by 10 o'clock. I've got a
Okay.
6-year-old and I'm busy all day. So I'm really tired by like 9 o'clock.
I remind people that midnight is supposed to be the middle of the night. And that
Mm,
when you look at the restoration of our immune system, of our brains, and that beautiful little boy that you are teaching how to take on the stresses of the world, that sleep routine is a learned skill. It is taught by mothers to their children. Yes, there's dads that teach it, but universally across the globe, mothers teach sleep habits. There's a really good book out there called On Becoming Baby Wise. So if you just type in baby wise, it's written by one of my colleagues on how important it is for mothers to teach the routine depth of sleep. I give it to every one of my friends that's pregnant, every one of my friends that's had a baby. This is how you wire a healthy brain. And when patients come to see me in their, you know, chapters of life in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, the first, we can't fix a thing until they get sleep back to happening. Not booze laced sleep, not benzo laced sleep, not tranquilizer laced sleep. Sleep, deep sleep is how we heal a body, whether immune system or brain. And if midnight doesn't come anywhere close to the middle of the night, you got a problem.
that is great advice. I've also noticed when I don't sleep well that sometimes symptoms return or
Oh,
I just don't feel good. Everything's worse when you don't sleep, right?
wait till you start checking those numbers. As soon as you
I'm
stop
going to.
sleeping well,
Yeah, I will.
right?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. I'll let you know because are you going to meet stock in Tennessee?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm
I
excited.
will be
Yeah.
there too. So I'm going to order it and then I'll let you know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, Lauren, it was awesome to for us to be able to share time together, and I hope what I educate your audience appreciates, and it helps them, and that you can have all the praise for leading the efforts here and serving them.
Thank you. It's been an honor to talk to you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
You bet.
Thank you guys so much for watching this conversation with Dr. Boz. I hope it challenged you and encouraged you to think deeper about what true metabolic health actually looks like. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more videos like this. And I would love it if you left your personal story in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.